recording.
I know, abuse.
That's praise.
Yeah, I like the attention, that's it.
All right, we're streaming on YouTube now.
Sire
I don't know
doesn't.
if we had minutes. Yeah, we
Surfer
have
shirts.
minutes from.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when they were from. July what? I've got them. Do you want to approve those?
Sure, let's.
All right.
You want a second?
So,
Second.
all right, minutes are approved as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aaron,
Yes,
we'll put it right on you.
this thing is real close. So, going through the agenda, the first thing for those that might not have it in front of them, Meg Street. So that project is still underway. I don't really have anything to update on that one, but I felt it was probably something we could leave on the list because we are still moving forward with it. One thing I did want to bring up in coordination with the Justice Center is that, which is the second item on the list, is that we are moving forward with the Justice Center remaining at the current location. I don't remember if I had reported that in this, in the Bayfront Corridor Committee meeting or not, but the Justice Center, the commission did vote on it to keep the police and court at 222 megs. That being said, we worked on a contract. It got approved at the last meeting to move forward with the design contract with Bowen. And we are setting up those kickoff meetings now. We're coordinating Meg Street with the Justice Center. So what we're trying to do is get right out of the gun, knowing that Meg's is going to be under construction first, adding the sewer laterals, the water service lines, and doing all that stuff. So we're adding that to the Meg Street project.
Who's the company? You said Bowen?
Bowen, R.L. Bowen is the architect.
How do you spell Bowen?
Bowen.
Okay, thanks.
So I just want you guys to be aware on the Meg Street project, we're not too far along that we can't incorporate anything into it for the Justice Center project. So we are trying to coordinate those things and coordinate on Meg Street the downtown plan concepts of possibly extending those roads, the intersections of Market, Washington, and Water. I didn't really do that in order, but Washington, Market, and Water. And just putting the radius on there for whatever happens in the future, but making sure that around the Justice Center at that Washington intersection, we are looking at the police and how they're going to have their egress to and from the site. So just wanted you guys to be aware that we are coordinating those two things together, and hopefully that design process on the Justice Center lasts somewhere between 9 to 12 months. So next year around this time, hopefully we're bidding out the construction on that.
Aaron,
Yes.
one time the courts had quite a bit of money. I think it was, I remember years ago, it was over $1 million. Will some of the monies be coming out of there to do this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. The police is about 60% and the court is about 40% of the square footage of the site. Mm-hmm. And that's also what the preliminary design, it was right around 60-40 was the estimate, not only for that, but also for the basically the rest of the building. When you're talking the HVAC systems and all of that stuff, it was still around 60-40. So not just the square footage, but all of the needs for both as well. So it just is really going to be about 40% of what the courts put into this.
Okay. I went in to see the rec department. On the outside, there's some nasty stuff on that brick wall. What is that dripping down? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that stuff has been there since I was over there.
God,
I
it's
think a
nasty
lot of
looking.
it is probably salt and just
Yeah, it's
calcium
mixture going
deposits
into
at
the
this
back.
point. I don't know, but we're not going to leave that.
It's gross looking, I'll tell you.
We also won't leave the trees growing in the gutters.
Oh, that's a good idea too.
Oh, come on.
It's a green roof.
Those were there when you
Ghetto
started too.
palms.
They were.
Needs paint, tear it down, build a new one.
Yeah, just scrape that off and move on.
Causeway Wetlands?
Yes, through the chairman, this project is ready to be out to bid. On Monday, we should be at the commission meeting to get permission to bid the project. This one is the first project of that Sandusky Bay initiative that started in 2015, 2016 timeframe. So really looking forward to finally seeing how this is going to improve the water quality and improve the habitat out there. What I can say is that the way that the Sandusky Bay initiative was set up is we were looking at 3 project locations. This project is part of Project Area 2 from the Sandusky Bay initiative. That Project Area 2 was broken into 4 phases. We're doing the first phase of Project Area 2. And this phase is also broken into 3 smaller projects. So this is the first one of building the stone revetment wall around where the Corps of Engineers next summer will be placing their dredge material, which will be the second phase of the project. So what we're doing is basically creating that location right now for them to dump that dredge material. And then in 3 or 4 years, when that dewaters, we're going to have another phase of this project to plant all of the native habitat and reshape everything. So even though we're moving forward with this project, when you see it in the end next spring, it's not going to be this beautiful lush wetlands. It's going to be more so an area that they can dewater. Now, one thing that's very important to me, and I've expressed it to them, that even though we are, the environmental impacts are very important to me, but also the boater safety and having enough navigational aids and those types of things. So we are making sure that they are working with the Coast Guard and ODNR and everybody else to get the appropriate navigational aids out there, because when those waves are up, no matter how high you build this thing, as we saw over the last couple of years, you can lose a lot of that big rock and those waves will come over. So we are trying to get those things incorporated into the project for boater safety.
Where's this phase going to be? Where's the location?
Yeah, so what I have called the long-time overflow parking lot at Cedar Point, which is on the western side of their gate into the parking area. It's just south of that, and where Cafferloo Island is, it's just north of that. So it hugs that area. It's north of the High Bridge, but what we have done is we have created the project to be south of the low bridge that has the culvert that goes underneath it as well. The original plans showed that would be encompassed in the project, and ultimately in the end, that lower bridge where the culvert is that allows the northern flow through that northwest corner of the back bay into and out of the back bay will eventually, in 3, 4, 5 years, is intended to be incorporated into the project. But right now, because we are looking to have this material dewater, and that we're keeping it south of that culvert area so that we don't impact that. And one thing that we have added to the project as well is to make sure that at the end of the project, that they reestablish the invert and the grade lines of that, because I'm sure it's filled with material over the past 20, 30, 40 years. So it should be bound by that area. And, this is something that right now, it shouldn't impact the flow anywhere. It's just going to impact the visibility not the visibility, but making sure that people that are used to sitting in that area fishing, that they're not hitting their boat on the bottom of it. So.
Good location. Pathway.
Yeah, so we're still moving forward on the pathway. One thing that I did want to bring up is that we have submitted, and we made this announcement at one of the commission meetings through the manager's report, that we have submitted a grant application through the federal government for what is now called RAISE, R-A-I-S-E grant, formerly known as Tiger. I can't remember what they called it under the Trump administration, but we've submitted on that in the past under the Trump administration. Now that it's RAISE, we're hoping that we have a better chance of getting it. There's more of a focus on pedestrian and pathway and multimodal type projects under the new administration. So we feel that we have a lot better chance than we had in the last couple of years of getting it. So we're resubmitting that application, and that would be for filling in basically everything else from where the landing ends at Cedar Point Drive all the way to the western end. We're not going to find out till next year sometime about that, but we did submit that. That was an $18 million request.
Wow.
Figured if we're going for it, we'll go all in.
Aaron, Cold Creek butts right into Venice Road. And about 2 days ago, they striped a walkway across the street and two very large poles with solar lights, I think, in the top. They did that real fast. They did it, I think, in one day.
Yeah.
I wondered how people were going to get across.
Zip line.
That zip line, yeah, that would work too. Hit those semis as they're coming through.
Gotta be quick.
Yep. That's being used a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if they're on the poles yet, but we're going to have those rapid flashing beacons for the motorists to slow
Okay.
down, so they're aware of that. And that's what those going to be on those poles.
I think the mailboxes are still standing.
They are, and we're still working with the post office and the residents. Shockingly to us, many of those residents have said that they actually prefer their mailbox on the south side of the road. If it were
Really?
me, there's not a chance I'd just leave my mail there.
Yeah.
But these people are telling us that that's where they want them. Other areas, we're working with the post office to figure out if we can consolidate and maybe put them somewhere on the north side. There's a delicate balance between keeping the postal vehicle off of the bike path, as well as making sure that we're providing safe access for the residents to get their mail. So something that we've been working on for months, and we finally got a good relationship with somebody at the post office who's been very responsive and very good to work with.
Street-ready golf carts, are they allowed on the pathway or do they stay on the sidewalk? I mean, stay on the street, right?
On the street.
I've seen them on the pathway.
So have we.
Do we even permit golf carts on state routes 35 miles an hour?
I don't know.
Though our ordinance, I think,
I don't know.
I don't remember. Maybe they do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever the ordinance says.
Yeah.
That the other day.
Yeah, I just build it.
There you go.
So are those residents who prefer to have their mailbox on the south side, are they just picking it up from their car, or how are they just running across the street? I'm just curious if anybody, maybe you.
I don't know anybody that lives down there, so I don't know what they're gonna do.
Well, what you're going to have is some people walk out to their mailbox, and some people never walk to their mailbox. They always use their car. So you have different needs and different preferences. And if, with any luck, you'll get to 2/3 of them want it on the south side of the street, and then you've got kind of cover to put them all there, because the majority wants them there, and you're done. It might not get there. I think you guys are doing the right thing, like kind of letting it find its answer, right?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's how we do a lot of things. We don't force it on people. We want them to be able to feel comfortable with the end product. And in this situation, I mean, we have the delineators are finally going up. Those have been in design since the beginning of the project, which really made those mailboxes stand out, that we didn't have the delineators. We were hoping to see how it would work and how it would look with the delineators in line with the mailbox, and the mailbox would really appear as another delineator, but talking to these residents, if they want them on the south side, then we'll let them figure out how they're getting their mail from there.
Has the post office been heard on this issue? Do they care whether they're one side or the other, or both sides, or?
What the post office cares about is that, and we push pretty hard about trying to get them to park at one of the hotels there, those motels,
Good.
walk and deliver the mail on foot, and they said absolutely not. So what they care about is that they have a safe way to deliver the mail. They asked several times if they could just drive on the bike path for that little bit of time, and we said no. They even pointed out other examples where they felt we should look at, and we said no, we're not going to allow that. So we need to find a balance somewhere.
They pushed back over at Cedar Point. They wanted all the mailboxes so far from the edge of the roadway, south side of the roadway, none of it on the north side. And some people haven't gotten around to putting their mailboxes back, and what the post office is gonna say, you gotta come pick your mail up at the post office. So that's maybe gonna motivate them to do what they need to do, but, yeah.
And there is one location where there's a private driveway that heads to the north out there. And what our original solution was to provide a bit of a turnaround and then put a cluster box at that location. But a lot of the residents that we talked to said even right next door or 2 doors down said that they'd prefer to walk across the street than walk on the bike path to
It's
the
bumper
cluster
to bumper
box.
sometimes. Jeez.
I'm sure.
We need another zip line out there.
And we'll make it very clear that if that's,
No, you need those tubes like they used to have at the south.
Oh, yeah, at the bank. Gets Vista's old tubes.
yeah. And it's something that we'll make clear to them that if that's where it's going to be, that they need to walk down to that new crosswalk
Yeah.
at Cold Creek, walk around and get their mail that way,
Yeah.
because that's the only safe.
And there's a sidewalk there, a
Access.
new sidewalk there on that side.
The landing.
Yes.
All this for, stuff that nobody opens,
Right.
all this junk mail that, cut down a tree, make paper,
I hate that.
ship it at great cost, and don't even open it and throw it away, and probably don't recycle it. Treat a landfill.
No comment. And the landing, we are moving forward on that. We've not, I believe I brought up maybe a couple months ago that we also have been working with Marcy Captor's office on trying to get a $4 million grant for the landing. What that would be for is for the multimodal portion west of Heminger Ditch. So from Heminger Ditch, the bridge that goes over Pipe Creek, and then down to Cedar Point Drive. We would just incorporate it into the project and make sure that those funds are set up to only pay for that piece of it. We're still moving forward on the acquisition phase. We've been working really hard over the past month or two with the acquisition company, the real estate firm that our consultant is using. We're moving forward with them on quite a few of these properties. Hopefully, I'm very hopeful, I don't want to jinx anything, but I'm very hopeful that we can bring some to commission in September, and we'll be able to have 2 or 3 more of those properties finalized. One of the things that might come into play is we still intend to bid the project next year. We were hoping to have all the acquisition done by July. That obviously didn't happen. So right now, if we do get that $4 million or even a portion of that $4 million, there will be additional design criteria that grant or that funding would put on the project, meaning that we might have to use some of that $4 million, probably not much, maybe $50,000, $100,000 to do those design things, but it could delay the project between 6 and 12 months. So even though we're still intending to do it next year, if we find out that we get $4 million, I would gladly delay the project 6 months. And that would actually probably put us in a better bidding time frame anyway, and we get better pricing than in January, February, March of next year, because I don't see prices coming down for a lot of these things. And it actually could help with the Justice Center as well, bidding it
Yeah.
later next year than early next year.
And West End connectivity.
Yes, we spoke on most of that project. There are still a few items that remain. They put, a lot of the delineators were thrown in yesterday. I have not seen exactly what it looks like yet. I haven't driven out there. I'm hoping to do that today. The crossing is still there. We did tell the contractor although we like the blue lines and it's supposed to represent water, we didn't like how wavy it looked as they laid it, so we made them at their cost pull it up, put it back down, and straighten it out and make it look like a real line at the edge of the pavement.
Like somebody sober did it?
What's that?
Like somebody sober did it?
It looked pretty bad in some areas. So we're really finalizing that project, and I'm happy with how it turned out. And once we can get these mailbox figured out, get the delineators up, and get that crosswalk in, I think it's gonna be a real asset for the west end of town. And hopefully, I was really hoping we could get the crosswalk in at the beginning of summer to see how those neighborhoods would use it, but it didn't happen. And hopefully, the last couple weeks we can see kids getting over to Toffs or even up to Lions Park from there.
Living here, we see the changes. They aren't as dramatic to us because we see them in increments.
Right.
We had some friends come to town that haven't been here in 4 or 5 years, and they were like, wow, what's happened to Sandusky? And
It's really changed.
We do, yeah.
It has. I was going out to lunch with the new planner a couple days ago, and I saw some people from my church back in Lorraine County, and they had only been here for a half hour. They were extremely impressed. They were taking the good time out on a cruise that night, and I told them all the things they could do, and they're like, those signs that you have are incredible. I'm like, oh, we did those wayfinding signs 5 years ago. And then I asked them at the end of the day how their trip went, and they said, like, this place is gorgeous. The way that it's maintained, we don't see that in a lot of cities. The waterfront access, most cities don't have that much waterfront access. It's usually private, and the parks that you have and all these things, they loved it. And I've had my college roommates have come and stayed in Sandusky over the past month, and they've all been very impressed with the community. And I'm talking from Lions Park all the way to Sports. I mean, they're along the waterfront, and they've been extreme, not just downtown. I mean, the parks in Central and Huron, we sent one to the splash pad. So I've heard people tell me that they hear it from state government officials as well in Columbus, that they're impressed with the Sandusky and how not only there's private investment, but how the city invests in the community as well.
It's time for Port Clinton, Norwalk, Huron, Vermillion to look at Sandusky and say, you guys are doing a great job.
Akron's doing
Right.
it.
Well, I'd like to comment on that because this is a good time to point out that, how patience and vision pay off. When I moved here, I saw a lot of potential. We saw downtown, and, my joke is we moved downtown before it was cool. But we saw that, for what it could be. What I didn't realize is all the work that had already been done. So this has been going on for at least 30 years. I know Dr. Bill, for a fact, I know that he's aware of the Kinsel McCline drawings that were, expressed a vision very artistically. Most of that work was bed sheets of very imaginative and beautiful renderings, visionary renderings. So for at least 3 decades, people have been working on this quietly. Sometimes it was well known what they were doing quite visibly, and they've been forgotten. Sometimes it was people who were working quietly and nobody knew it, and sometimes it was 2 steps forward and a step back. But incrementally, we've moved forward, we've laid the groundwork, set the stage to make what's happening today possible, not the least of which was people visibly and invisibly fighting to protect the public access that in many cases, there probably isn't a foot of public access that it hasn't been over the decades fought for to keep in the public domain at some time. And then some was added when the Chesapeake happened. It was, you can't credit it to one person, but we didn't have that access around the Chesapeake. And now the Chesapeake is a great experience. It's really cool having, 200 in round numbers market condos, 2 blocks from downtown, less than that, from the center of downtown, and the public can walk around it. So we added, hundreds of feet of public access. We added to it rather than lost it. So it's really easy to say, look what we've done right now, but it took a long time, and Port Clinton's been working a long time, and the other cities, in a lot of cases, what they have accomplished is long-term, is the fruits of a long-term thinking and just fortitude and patience.
I grew up downtown. I lived on Marcus Street, where Gallagher's Feed Store is. I remember when Shoreline Drive was Railroad Street. I remember the tracks.
Me too.
And I remember the backs of those buildings were all trash and junk. Today, the backs look better than the fronts.
It was an alley.
Pardon?
It was an alley.
It was an alley.
A bad one.
It was ugly.
Yeah.
And I remember the vision, the dream was to make the back look better than the front, and it worked. It worked. And if you drive downtown, not on a Friday or Saturday, go down Monday through Thursday, it's like the State Theater's open. There's so many people downtown.
It's amazing.
The cars are all parked and everybody's walking around. It's like, and the state's not open because that's what used to draw people downtown. It's amazing. It really
I
is.
think a bunch of us have always said we couldn't wait until there was a parking problem.
Yeah.
And now we're starting
Yeah.
to realize the fruits of our labor, and people are having to work on Fridays and Saturdays to find a place to park. That's the best problem to have.
It is.
Thing. But along those lines, a question that was brought up yesterday, talking to some friends. Does the exit and entrance to Jackson Street Pier, they were feeling that was a little tight. Is there any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So as we went through the process of design for Shoreline Drive and Jackson Street Pier, the focus for those projects, and I do want to point out that when we do projects, we make sure that we get every department that's going to be looking at it or that would have an opinion on the project involved, which means that planning was heavily involved in the design concepts, looking at the walkability, and they oversee the downtown parking and those types of things. And they started the project, so we want to make sure that the concepts that were originally thought of were brought into it. We get street department, we get everybody else involved throughout the design. And one of the things that was heard over and over was that one of the points of focus needs to be the pedestrian access and figuring out how to slow the vehicles down. If you provide too wide of a drive access, I've seen it no matter where I am, no matter how wide you provide it, people are going to drive over the bike path and the lawn and everything else anyway. If we made the entire front of the Jackson Street Pier drive access, somebody would drive somehow over the lawn.
You don't need signs. You pull in, the message is delivered because, God, it's kind of skinny.
It
You gotta
is.
be
Traffic
careful.
calming.
And then there's people walking everywhere. So I think that's been achieved.
And we still get complaints on the far east end about how tight the turn is at, what is that, Franklin down there?
Yeah, it's Franklin Street.
And it's tight, and that was by design. And what my job was to make sure that we maintained that planning desire of having the walkability in the downtown slowing traffic, but also the vehicular access and beefing up the infrastructure where we could so that it didn't fall apart. Like at Franklin, we made that concrete on the sidewalk on the south side extra thick and put a lot of rebar in it to make sure that when a vehicle did go over there, it's inevitable that it was going to withstand that weight and that turning motion. So yes, it is tight, and I know there's times that when I'm coming, it's more when I'm coming out of that parking lot and trying to turn right, trying to go west, it is tight, but that was the intent of slowing vehicles down and having people wait, and not just with the bike path going through there, you want to slow them down as well a little early, because a lot of times people, if they see a wide turn and see a car coming off in the distance, they'll whip right through there and totally ignore a bike that might be coming from the west.
Or a scooter.
Or a scooter.
I mean,
Or-
they're all over the side of the scooter.
Bikes.
I almost got run over there. Wow.
So,
I was at the Mylander movie thing for Whiteman Weaver, and here come two charter buses. They're gonna turn left to come in, and I said, oh my God, but they did it, because they were taking their passengers to the good time, and they made that turn, both of them.
Go to Italy, get on a bus
Oh,
there
yeah.
and watch them drive the roads. You just can't believe it happened.
And that is a good point. I do want to also state that that whole thing was designed to accommodate the largest vehicle user of the pier, which typically is our fire department's pumper truck.
Well, that's true.
So, and our sewer cleaning trucks. We didn't want the long tractor trailers on there, but we knew that charter buses would be going on there and dropping people off for the good time. So we did accommodate that, the fire truck. So there is access for everybody that's intended to use it. We
So
don't-
people coming the other way just knew to stop. Let the bus go through.
If buses can come on and off, then
Yeah,
personal vehicles shouldn't have any problem.
no.
well, I think Mr. Klein articulated it really well. I would add that it's not just unavoidable that because of all the pedestrians and others, it's not just unavoidable that motorists are nervous. It's desirable.
Right.
Okay? There's such an asymmetry of power between a car and a pedestrian. You're talking something on the order of 20 times the weight and hundreds of times more horsepower. It's so out of whack that you just have to do this. And it's, when we talk about traffic calming, I tell people, I mean, it's not about calming the motorists, it's allowing the pedestrians to be calm for a change, and the cyclists to be calm for a change. So we can't optimize the entire planet for cars. This is a place where it needs to be optimized, and we're grudgingly allowing cars, I suppose, and certainly people with with other abilities that don't have a choice. Our waterfront is best experienced, in my opinion, on foot if you can do it, and if you can't, we have alternatives, right? On foot or on a cycle or
At least we've eliminated the train cars.
well,
Speaking
yeah.
of asymmetry of power, I like that line.
Right. Well, we don't have trains down there anymore, and I don't think it's
Tracks are
happening.
wrong.
We tried to do it back in the metro parks when I was on the board, when we were, trying to get bike paths alongside the roadway, getting signs and share the road. People don't look at signs.
So along
If
those,
you make the road narrower, then they're gonna be more aware of what's.
but because of that, we still have a sign up there that says 25 miles an hour, and I think there's a pretty broad consensus that maybe that speed limit should be lower. And I was wondering if this board, just to create the cover and support, if this body might be inclined to make an official recommendation about speed there. I don't know, I want to test the waters on that. It seems appropriate that that's an exceptional situation, and the standard 25 miles an hour seems even that limit. I'm not saying 25 is excessive, but you know that if it's 25, 34 is going to be allowed.
Yeah, but traffic doesn't permit the speed when you have people walking and other cars driving slower because of all
That's correct.
concerns.
But at times, I've seen people doing 40.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, of course, now they're nervous being too close to the curb, so now they're like straddling the center line doing 40. And I think you need, when somebody gets that reckless, that you need the cover and be able to tell the judge who's going 25 over the limit, not, 15 over the limit. It just needs to, 25 limit is inappropriate. In my opinion, it's not a big deal, and if there's no support for it, but maybe we should think about that. Or maybe we don't need to, maybe the city's already thinking about that.
Have there been any accidents I have not read anything in the newspaper. I mean, number of accidents would determine what the speed would be.
But that's not the only, I agree, but that's not the only criteria, because just because there hasn't been an accident doesn't mean you're not ruining the experience for pedestrians and bikes when somebody roars through there at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't know about accidents out there. I haven't heard of any vehicular pedestrian accidents. What I can say is that I do know 2 years ago, the planning department was really looking with the engineering department. They were leading the charge on looking at all of the speed limits throughout the city because they're set by ordinance. It would have to be an ordinance change. They were looking at that. I have not heard much chatter in the last year and a half for obvious reasons. And I would almost bet that would be raised back up to something that they would be evaluating over the next year and a half, 2 years on everywhere throughout the city of where that needs to be changed.
And that's exactly the function of this body, is if we have an opinion on it, sometimes we can precipitate action by recommendation.
When I watch the out-of-towners, you can tell they're out-of-towners. They're going slow because they're looking at the sights.
Yeah.
If they're doing too fast, they miss what's down there. They slow down because their eyes are out this way and their eyes are out this way.
As long as there's a speed limit posting,
Yeah,
why not have it posted at a safe speed, a safer speed? Where it's not a raceway.
Cedar Point's facing the same thing, nice smooth roadway. It's a little narrower than what I anticipated it, and people are driving faster than
I
what the
bet
speed
they
limit
are.
is. And, so what we've tried to encourage the residents to do is to drive the speed limit and don't let people pass. Just if you need to hug the middle line so they can't get around you, that's what you do, so.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I become one of those guys. Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I'm counting heads here and saying we can let this percolate.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
I think it's a
right.
good idea.
they're on the back burner.
It's still new to all of us, and,
Sure.
I haven't driven down there much, but when I have, I was like, wow, this is narrow. Well, it's narrow for a reason, and now
It's working.
it is working.
Works so on its own. But I think it's something to keep considering. I don't think we have any public input.
Nope.
So, shall we adjourn?